The Mama Sapano incident provides an opportunity for all of us to reflect on how to avoid repeating the same incidents to ensure the quest for peace will heal the wounds of a conflict that has spanned 42 years. In its aftermath, Congress will play a key role in winning the peace with the passage of the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law. And joining us tonight here on NewsLife is Professor Julkipli, Dean of the Islamic Studies of the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City. Good evening, sir, and welcome to NewsLife.
Hi, good evening.
Sir, after several hearings, Chairman Iqbal appeared at the Senate yesterday. How significant do you think is his attendance in shedding light on the truth about the incident?
Well, I think his presence was really significant. There was, I think, a qualitative change in the mood of the hearing yesterday compared to the other hearings in the Senate. And I think it only shows that the conflict in Mindanao, if it is provided with certain more personal flavor, or if you may, intimacy, then there's a possibility that the polarization would be, a lesson, and therefore a compromise could be done. So I think his presence really, as I said, lowered the political temperature in the Senate, and in fact there was almost like a shift from some senators' positions, including, I think, even OIC PNP chief Espina was rather calculating in his remarks, and therefore it's a good sign indeed that Iqbal's presence has sort of changed the mood of the Senate hearing yesterday.
Sir, Chairman Iqbal also mentioned about their desire to have an independent body look into what happened. What is your reaction to this?
Well, in fact, we have been proposing or been suggesting that it should indeed be an independent body where it's neither the government nor the MILF who should do the investigation, because the assumption is if either parties will do the investigation, or say their sub-agencies, it will always be clouded with subjectivities or impressions that that's the side of the government, or on the other side, that only the positions of the more Islamic Liberation Front. So an independent body would somehow harmonize the positions of both the government and the more Islamic Liberation Front. And I think there are mechanisms in even institutions in the ceasefire agreement, and I'm more particular with the International Monitoring Team, a team comprised by different countries, and therefore I think it's more in the position to do the investigation, as it would be able to objectively identify data and findings, and even come up with some possible recommendations that is beneficial to both parties.
Sir, the opinion of several of our lawmakers was affected because of what happened. I mean, on the BBL.
Right.
And then Chairman Iqbal also mentioned that they are still right on track, or they are still in the path of pursuing peace in Mindanao in terms of the Bangsamoro Basic Law.
Right. Well, we could understand the position of the Senate. I mean, the encounter in Mamapasano indeed has affected the momentum of the BBL's discussion. On the contrary, we should also look at the bigger picture, because if the Senate or the House of Representatives would be pinned down on the issue of, say, massacre or encounter relative to what happened in Maguindanao, we have to note that there were previous atrocities. In fact, they are much bloody, I would say. There were many massacres that happened in the past. So if the MILF probably would take it in a manner that they would also raise the issues of massacres done by the military against, say, Muslim civilians in the past. So how far are we going to identify those massacres? We could not almost identify. In fact, you have to remember that the birth of the Moro movements was the result of the massacre, of the Jabida massacre during the Marcos regime. But it's good that the Moro Islamic Liberation Front is not already raising it, because I think it wants to open a new chapter of relationship with the Philippine government. So I think our legislators should be able to look at the whole issue in a broader perspective, so that they could transcend beyond petty politics or say some kind of a myopic understanding of really what happened, and look at the broader implications if the BBL is jeopardized, because that would then possibly repeat what had happened in the past. There were many instances where the failure in the peace process had precisely resulted into a series of wars, including the emergence of different factions. From 1970s, the non-implementations of the Tripoli Agreement led into the birth of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. The collapse of the RPM-NLF peace process in 1987 led into the formations of the Abu Sayyaf group. The bungling of the MOA-AD in 2008 led into the emergence of the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters. Now, do we want another group to emerge, or do we want another rounds of war when the BBL will be jeopardized because we hardly look at or we don't learn from past lessons and use this as a way to move forward the peace process.
Speaking of the BBL, sir, some legislators are planning to propose some revisions. What are these revisions, and how do these compare to the original or initial version?
Well, in fact, it's quite expected because, in fact, there are already many versions, I would say. We have to note that the draft that reached Congress was actually a draft that was a product of a review by Malacanang of the original draft that was actually done by the Bangsamoro Transition Commission. So in other words, there are almost like 2 or 3 versions available, and we're expecting that what will come out as a final Bangsamoro Basic Law, in other words, the one that will be enacted by Congress, would be different from the present draft, and therefore different from the draft originally written by the Bangsamoro Transition Commission. And we're afraid, and I don't know the take of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, because there are actually 2 sources of the Bangsamoro Basic Law, and these are the Constitution, the Philippine Constitutions, and the Comprehensive Agreement on the Bangsamoro. Now, how would the legislators sort of weave together the imperative of making the BBL reflect the Philippine Constitution on one side, but on the other side, that it should also not be too far from the Comprehensive Agreement of the Bangsamoro is indeed a difficult task. And to think that even before the Mamapasano encounter, there were already, in fact, opposition to the Bangsamoro Basic Law. So, indeed, the BBL is now passing a very critical phase. What we're saying is, it's very rare that we reach this stage of our history where I guess the challenge is now on the shoulders of each and every congressman and senators in such a way that they have to look at, as I said earlier, the larger picture rather than petty politics or certain myopic interests. Because what is at stake here is not only what is our state today as a country, but even our future. Because anything that will happen in Mindanao, for instance, will always have tremendous consequences, not only for the Muslims in that area, but even for the whole country. Investment will be affected, the international image of the country will be affected if there will be a new round of atrocities that will come out or will happen if the BBL will be will not pass or will be jeopardized.
Professor, how important is it for this administration to push for the passage of the full implementation of the BBL? Some say that it has failed in the past. Maybe now is not the right time. Should that thought be entertained even?
Well, it's really important in the sense that it is, I think, the singular project of President Aquino. In fact, it's claimed that it will be his main legacy that he would leave when his term ends by 2016. And if it will be bungled or, as I said, jeopardized, then that would mean the Aquino government would practically leave nothing as far as the Mindanao issue is concerned. And notwithstanding the fact that if nothing happens during the time of President Aquino, despite the fact that what happened actually is just the holding of peace talks, the holding of peace process without implementation. The implementation would actually happen in 2016 thereafter. If nothing happens during the time of President Aquino, that means we'll have to start from zero by 2016 onward. And that would mean rendering the whole 6 years of peacemaking and building rapport and confidence building measure as engagement of futility. And I think that's not the right thing to do, because it is like, as I said in other instances, building a house, then after experiencing certain problems, you again would destroy it even before we occupy it. So I see that kind of metaphor or analogy as similar to building a house, then therefore destroying it once again. That's not the right thing to do, because I think the government has invested so much. The international community has much expectations. Japan, the United States, EU, and Southeast Asian countries have much expectations on the BBL. So it will not only be, I think, the supporters of the BBL that would be discouraged if the whole thing will not turn right, but it will be the image of the country and the international community.
Finally, sir, everyone is saying at the end of the day, we are all Filipinos and we want peace. How do you think should we move forward from what recently happened? Of course, this is very fresh on everybody's minds, and with some materials circulating in the social media, a lot of people are really angry at what happened.
Well, it is just sad that we have reached this stage of our history where there's just easy access of information, or anyone could just use the internet, for propaganda purposes and so on and so forth. And it could affect us tremendously in terms of raising our emotion and making us passionate in certain things, although there are also positive effects because of this global information. On the contrary, probably because of our inability to make proper judgment on when and how to use, say, the YouTube and so on, without us knowing that we have already affected the nation and many people. So that is one, I think, that we have to learn. The other thing, I think, is, I guess I have to go back to what I used to say, that we are in this stage of our history where I think we are all challenged to transcend beyond our myopic interests and see the larger interests of the nation, including the future of a place like Mindanao. Because if that area is developed, I think it will cascade to other areas, and the whole country will be developed. The peace and security will impact not only in the country but even in other countries like in Southeast Asia. So I think that I would rather leave it with that, a kind of a plea for us to transcend and make as statements in understanding our situation today.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing with us your insights. That's Professor Julkipli, Dean of the Islamic Affairs of the University of the Philippines in Diliman. Thank you, sir.